Hi, Andrew from SACS, and welcome to video number 10 in our 12 video sequence on neurodivergence at work. And what we'll be talking about in this video is leadership of people who are neurodivergent. How different is that from leading people who are not neurodivergent? Well, I'm going to say that many of the techniques are very similar, but a big additional component is an understanding of neurodivergency. Now, a very important finding on the nature of well-being at work is where well-being comes from. In earlier videos, I mentioned the work of Mark Griffin from Western Australia, where he was able to demonstrate that employees live in four worlds: the world of the job, the world of the team, the world of the leader, and ultimately the world of the organisation. Now, the important thing about this is 80% of people's well-being comes from the local environment that they work in every day: their job, their team, and their immediate leader. Only 20% comes from the organisation. You see this arrow on the side: proximal means things that are close to me, distal means things that are far away from me. Now, the organisation for most people is relatively distal. It's a kind of a concept. The company that you work for, or the organisation that you work for, or whatever, is a sort of a distal kind of a concept. It's, for most people, the job that I do, my colleagues, and my immediate leader. I mean, that's right next to me every single day. So the important thing is that if you want to make your organisation effective in leading people who have neurodivergence, it has to be a distributed process. So let's say you've got an organisation that has 1,000 people in it, and you have the chief executive and you have the executives. Then you have the third level leaders, and then you have the fourth level leaders and the fifth level leaders. So the fourth level leaders and the fifth level leaders might be called team leaders or managers or whatever. In an organisation of 1,000 people, something like 70% of the employees report to level 4 or level 5 leaders. 70%. What that says is you better ensure that your process for skilling people up in leadership generally, and perhaps in the context of this video sequence for neurodivergence, you better make sure that that's well distributed. And in a sense, having the executive understand why we're doing all of this is important, but it's absolutely crucial that the less senior levels of leadership are skilled up in all of this. So one of the key things about effective leadership is how much directiveness a particular leader will bring to a particular situation. And so here we have what we call 3 models of leadership. Now, of course, that's a simplification. It's not 3 models of leadership. At one end, you have a style of leadership which is entirely top-down, where a person will tell the employee or employees what to do. At the other end of the spectrum, you have what's called facilitative leadership, where the leader doesn't bring a solution at all. They bring a challenge or an opportunity to the employees, and the employees decide. Now, good leadership is about being able to move up and down along this continuum, to be really top down when you need to do that, and there are times when you do need to do that, and to be facilitative when necessary. Now, the reason we call it 3 models of leadership is model 2 is a kind of a consultation. That's where this person in the middle is asking these people, going out and speaking to them and saying, well, what do you think about this, Mary Smith or Bill Jones or whatever? And once this person has consulted those people, he or she is then deciding what would be done. The important thing to understand is that most leaders in the world oscillate between 1 and 2, top-down or consultation. So they're either telling people what to do or asking people what to do and factoring that into their decision. A third model is incredibly powerful and little used, and that's facilitation. So facilitative leadership, you'll see this case here is where this leader has brought a challenge or an opportunity to a group of 10 employees, and this leader is splitting those employees into subgroups, 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 4. And what they're doing is that they're asking those people to solve a problem or to make the most of an opportunity. And then a true facilitative leader causes people to come up with their ideas. And then what they're doing is that they're putting them all up on a whiteboard, be that a physical or a digital whiteboard, and they're getting people to vote for those ideas. Now, the true facilitative leader will then go with the majority. And that's a good way of keeping things moving. You say to people, well, look, you're going to have the opportunity to contribute, but ultimately we will go with the majority view. There's a couple of things which relate to neurodivergence. You'll notice that we've split people into these small subgroups as part of the discussion. That's really important. Some people with neurodivergence do not want to talk in front of a large group. If that's the case, having them in smaller groups makes it more likely that they will contribute. And, of course, people who are just plain introverts will be more comfortable. But, as well as that, when they speak in their small group, What they can often do is that they can nominate somebody to report back on behalf of the group. They hear their ideas get in front of the larger group, but they haven't had the confronting experience of needing to try to deliver those themselves. Now, this is a huge help for diversity of thinking, and it's often used in creativity techniques. The other thing is that people who then vote for these various ideas, the fact that they're voting demonstrates that, look, this is an empowering kind of a process. It's also very optimistic. One of the key characteristics of effective leadership is optimism. Leaders must be optimistic, not in the sense of don't worry, everything's going to turn out fine, but optimism about the strength of their team. If a leader is turning over a challenge or an opportunity to their team, well, of course, that's intrinsically optimistic, isn't it? You are saying, I know you guys will come up with the solution. And then what the leader can do is empower members of the team to actually take ownership of some of those solutions. And then the leader's job is to back that, to support that. And of course, this is what's known as facilitative leadership. It's also sometimes called transformational leadership. And fundamentally, imagine if you've got a challenge which has an opportunity to benefit from a divergence of ideas. And that's what neurodivergency can bring you. This is a wonderful way of harnessing some of that strength, but to build it into plans which will then be delivered. So a key skill of leaders of neurodivergence is when you have to be top down. That's where you say to the person, this bit's not negotiable. When you gather their ideas and make up your own mind, and where you cause a group of employees to work together to solve a problem or to pursue an opportunity. That's one of the key skills. Choosing when is the most appropriate time to use Model 1, Model 2 or Model 3 leadership. And then having conversations with people where you need, for whatever reason, for people to change. This is the thing called feed forward. Feedback is where you say to people, oh, well, this is what you did wrong, or this is what was not up to scratch. It could also be, you did a wonderful job in this case, and don't stop doing that. I mean, we know that that causes significant benefits. But if you need somebody to change, does it help to tell them what they've done wrong in the past? Well, research evidence says it's not particularly helpful at all. So that gives rise to a technique called feed forward. Feed forward is the opposite of feedback in a sense, because you're asking people to do things a particular way in the future. Now, the reason that this is very important with people who are neurodivergent is that it's a characteristic of several forms of neurodivergency to have an overactive amygdala in comparison with neurotypical people. What that means is that people can become frightened or angry or depressed more quickly than a neurotypical person. One of the things we know about feed forward is because of the fact you're dodging criticism, you're going around criticism, and you're clarifying expectations, what that tends to do is it tends to allow you to have sometimes quite assertive conversations, but focusing on the future avoids the amygdala triggers. And what that can do is that it can cause the person to benefit from the learning without becoming defensive. And if you think of defensiveness, it's often a cocktail of anger, fear, and depression, which are the three amygdala emotions. Now, there is good, strong research evidence that if a person learns a new task through feed forward rather than feedback, they learn more quickly. Now, bearing all of that in mind, there are simply times where there should be reasonable accommodation for neurodivergencies. Way back at the start of this set of videos, I talked about the fact that jobs need to be set up for success for people with neurodivergence. And that may mean that you will need to have reasonable accommodations in order to get the benefits that you can get from neurodivergency. The next video in this sequence tells you about how to do that. Click on the link near this video to join us. If you find this content helpful, then like and subscribe.